Do you consider yourself pretty tech savvy and thinking about making a career out of IT? If so, then today I'm going to share some tips that'll hopefully help you start your own computer repair business. Stay tuned. So, you clicked this video because you want to know how to make money fixing computers. I've been a computer tech for 22 years, and I've been working for myself for about 12 of those years. I originally started my business in 2010 after losing my job. The idea was simply to go fix some computers so I could make some money and pay my mortgage. You know, because paying your bills is kind of hard when you don't have a job. But you know, it didn't take long before just a source of temporary income became my full-time job. I had tried starting my own business several times and was never really successful. That was until I had no other choice but to jump in headfirst and make it or starve. So, to make it easier on you, I'm going to share some tips that got me started so maybe you won't have to make the same mistakes that I did. Now, these tips are directly related to the computer repair industry, but they might help in other industries as well. However, I don't work in other industries, but I do know that these tips worked for me. Now, first off, I got to get this on the table right away. You don't need a ton of money to start your own business. In fact, I started my business with $1,000. That's literally all I had left out of my last paycheck. Since I didn't have much money, I had to be careful how I spent my money to get the most out of it. And you know, I didn't always make the right decisions. In fact, some of the decisions that I made were just downright stupid. Now, the first, and I think the most important tip is to be good at what you want to start a business doing. However, there's this saying that if you really want to be good at something, then start a business doing it. You'll get really good quick or fail. But if you want to minimize the chances of failing, then it would be a good idea to at least have a general understanding of the thing you want to start charging people for. But at the same time, I started my business. I had been a computer tech for 10 years, and I had a bachelor's degree in network security. So I knew a little, but I didn't know nearly as much as I thought I did. But regardless of your knowledge level, you need to be confident in your ability to perform tasks that people are paying you to perform. You definitely don't want to come off like you don't know what you're doing. So if this is something that you really want to do, you need to have knowledge of the subject matter. In fact, share in the comments below what you do for a living, and were you good at it when you started, or did you learn as you did it? The next tip is one that I don't think a lot of people starting out follow. Trust me, this one is extremely important. This tip is do not be the cheapest in your field. This one might be a little counterintuitive to some people, but hear me out. It'll make sense after I explain it. Because here's the thing, you might be tempted as a new business to want to drum up as many customers as you possibly can. And the most obvious way to do that is to undercut everyone else in your field. The problem is, if you do that, two things are going to happen. First off, you're going to attract people that you simply don't want as customers. Trust me, the people who want to pay the smallest dollar amount possible for your services also want the highest level of service imaginable. In fact, it's kind of an ironic concept, but it's true. These people will have a computer that's 15 years old and expect it to run like a brand new computer, but they're not willing to pay you more than $30. And they will call you constantly and expect you to support them for free, since, you know, they already paid you. You might think I'm exaggerating, but I'm really not. Secondly, many people will avoid hiring you because when they see how cheap your price is, they will think you're just not very good at your job. Trust me on this one. People are willing to pay a fair price for quality service. Also, people willing to pay you a fair price are absolutely the best customers in the world. They have realistic expectations, they will trust you in your suggestions, and best of all, they understand and expect to pay you for future problems. They don't believe that paying you once gives them lifetime tech support. Yes, this really happens, by the way. This tip is going to take a little bit of research. You need to know how much other techs are charging in your area. And sometimes techs are a little weird about quoting their prices over the phone, but that's exactly what I would do. Call up techs in your area and simply ask them what their hourly rate is. And like I said before, you don't want to be the cheapest, but at the same time, you also don't want to be the most expensive either. What I would recommend doing is falling right in at about 80%. if the most expensive tech in your area charges $100 an hour, then you should come in at about $80 an hour. But whatever you do, don't be the $20 Craigslist tech. If there are people in your area that are unwilling to pay more than $20 an hour, then let someone else have those customers. You really don't want them. And you know what? Share in the comments below what you look for when hiring someone to do a job for you. Do you always look for the cheapest person, or will you avoid the cheapest person in fear that the job might not be done right? The next tip is another important one, and that's advertising. The only way you're going to find customers is by advertising. This is going to cost you some money, but if you spend your money right, you can get the best bang for your buck here. Some people might recommend to take every advertising opportunity possible. However, this is stupid. Some advertising works better than others. In fact, sometimes the most expensive forms of advertising might work the least for you and your business. I can only give you my experience on this subject, and what's worked for me might not work for you. This is entirely dependent on your area, but hopefully through sharing my experience can help you save some money. First off, I'm going to tell you right now that the absolute best form of advertising that I've used and still use today is flyers on bulletin boards across town. It costs almost nothing to have flyers printed up. I use those flyers with the little pull-off tabs with my name and phone number on them. Every time I get them printed, it costs me about 20 or 30 bucks, and they last for quite a while. I typically pick a slow day and just drive around my county and hang up flyers. If I had to make an educated guess, I would say I've gotten roughly half of my business from advertising through those stupid flyers. Also, when I first started, I printed out a bunch of flyers and just went door to door. I didn't get much business, but some of my best customers that I still have to this day, I got just by walking into their business or knocking on their door and giving them a flyer. So, don't be shy. Get out there and start knocking on some doors. Ironically though, when I did that, there was an unusual number of people that didn't even own computers, but that was 12 years ago. Hopefully it's changed now. Or they might have just been saying that to get rid of me. Who knows? Another advertising method that I've used and had extremely good success with is Google Places. When you search for a business, you're probably doing it through Google, and Google advertises businesses for free. So make yourself a Google Places account and do your best to optimize your submission as best as possible. This one's gonna take a little bit of trial and error, and there's not a lot of guidance that I can give you on this one. Now, your goal here is to be in the first 3 places. This is because they're the ones that show up in the search results. If you're below the 3rd place, then no one will see your business unless they click on the More Businesses link. So just do what you can to put as much information in as possible. Also, when you do start getting clients, ask them to leave you reviews. The more reviews you get in Google Places, the better you'll start ranking. But I have to warn you here, don't post fake reviews. You might think you're the most sly person in the world and you could totally get away with it. But trust me, Google knows. Also, the customer searching for you knows too. If all the other techs in the area have like 5 reviews over several years and your business pops up out of nowhere with 140 reviews, it's likely those are not legitimate reviews. I have seen people do this in my area before, and their listing never ranks. It falls below the fold every time. So just make sure you're asking your customers to post legitimate reviews. Because here's the issue. People typically don't post reviews when they're happy with a service. They almost always post bad reviews when they're angry with someone. And you're not going to make everyone happy. So to make sure that the majority of your reviews are good reviews, just ask people to leave them for you if they're happy with your service. Now, moving on. Some of the advertising methods that I would avoid are amongst the most expensive. For instance, early on, I took out an ad in the Yellow Pages. This was incredibly expensive. I believe it cost me $80 a month. And you're under contract for, I believe, a year. It depends on how often the Yellow Pages are printed in your area, but in my area, that's a year. Either way, it was a complete waste of money. I believe in the year that I had that stupid ad in the Yellow Pages, I got like 2 customers. It definitely didn't pay for itself. I also had ads in local newspapers. This one honestly wasn't really that bad. It was expensive, but I did get a lot of business from it. I haven't done it in a really long time, but that form of advertising did pay for itself. The problem here is to make sure that you advertise in a newspaper that's only distributed in the area you're willing to work in. You definitely don't want to advertise in some national newspaper unless your business is seeking customers all across the country. However, I'm going to assume that you're just starting a business being a local computer tech. And if that's the case, then you definitely want to pick a newspaper that has a distribution in your area and is fairly popular. And you know what? Another form of advertising that I would highly recommend against is shopping carts. It's not that I didn't get business from them. It's more the ridicule I got from people that I know because of them. The typical jab was them asking me when my picture was going to be on milk cartons. And you know what? It also got pretty old seeing my face on the shopping cart when I was out shopping. You know what though? I did get business from the shopping carts, but that was also really expensive. I believe it was about $800 to do that and just wasn't worth the ridicule. Maybe if you have better friends, then this would be a better option for you. Finally, the last form of advertising that I would recommend against is websites like Craigslist, Facebook, and other free message boards. It may seem like a good idea to get your name out there in places that provide free advertising, but that's really not always the case. This goes back to my second tip to make sure you're not the cheapest tech in town. Because when people go on Craigslist looking for computer techs, they're typically not looking for the most expensive tech. The customers that you're gonna get off of those forms of advertising are just simply not worth the effort, so I would avoid them completely. If you run a computer business already, then share in the comments below what kind of advertising has worked for you. Maybe I'll get some new ideas. Now, this next tip should be obvious, but for some reason, some people just don't get it. This is to be a likable person. I'm a mobile computer tech. That means I actually go into other people's homes to fix their computers on site. People don't want an unlikable person in their home. In fact, it can make the entire experience kind of awkward for not only the customer, but also you. The service industry is almost entirely based on word of mouth advertising. And a cool little secret about that fact is that people will recommend a mediocre tech with a good personality even more than a great tech with a bad personality. So consider every customer you have as a job interview, because it kinda is. Make casual conversation with the customer. Take an interest in them. I mean, you're fixing their computer. You might as well make the experience enjoyable, right? These customers are not only going to remember you for their own future problems, but when their neighbors start complaining about their computer problems, guess whose name's gonna get dropped in the conversation? Now, some people simply don't have great personalities, and I get that. But everyone can at least be nice. Even if you don't have a great personality, you can still be kind to the customer. Yes, that even means being nice to annoying customers. Also though, on that same topic, one of the most important things that you should do, or rather not do, is talk about controversial subjects like politics and other things. Personally, I think we should all be able to talk about difficult topics, but not everyone can. Some people simply can't discuss controversial topics with people they disagree with. And the problem is, you don't know what kind of person your customer is until you're in a conversation about a controversial topic. Believe me, the quickest way to not get called back or recommended is to get into a political debate with your customer. You might actually win that debate, but you ain't getting called back. If your customer brings up a controversial topic, then sometimes it's best to just smile, shake your head, and then move on. Remember, you're there to fix their computer, not solve the world's problems. You know what though? Some of my best customers hold views that I disagree with. And believe it or not, they're great people. And there's lots of other things that we can talk about that are not controversial. So you know what? It's just not a good idea to get into any controversial conversations. Remember, you're not an activist. You're a computer tech, and you want the customer to recommend you and call you back. So pick a topic of conversation that best aligns with that goal. You definitely don't want to be known for the computer tech that always talks about how he was abducted by aliens.
Hey, don't put your hand in there, man.
On a side note, there's a few other things you should also consider. One of those is that some customers simply don't want to have a conversation. They just want their computer fixed and you to go. You should be able to pick up on the cues to know if this is the case. If the customer isn't really paying attention to what you're saying or is obvious in their attempts to not get into a conversation, then simply respect that, fix their computer, and leave. Some people just don't want to talk, and that's okay. And the next thing that you really should consider also is if you spend 2 hours working on their computer, but an hour of that was pretty much just you guys talking, then make sure you don't charge them for that time. You may find that some customers insist on paying you even though you easily could have gotten that job done in half the time if you weren't in that conversation. But in this case, be respectful and only charge the customer for the work that you did. I run into this problem a lot because if you can't tell, I'm kind of a talker. So I often spend way more time than necessary fixing a computer because I was having a conversation with the customer. However, every time that happens, I don't bill the customer for the time that we spent talking. I'm a computer tech, not an escort service. I'm only going to charge you for fixing your computer, not having a conversation about the meaning of life. And then the fifth and final tip is do a good job. If someone hires you to remove a virus from their computer and you charge them money and there's still a virus on their computer, then you haven't done your job. I go out of my way to not talk bad about my competition because here's the thing, I'm biased. Of course I think I'm a better tech than people competing with me, but me expressing that to the customer means absolutely nothing. It just turns into gossip. In fact, that should be the sixth tip. Don't talk bad about your competition. It won't help you. However, the reason why I shared that is because there's been many times when a customer called me to fix their computer just to find out that I'm fixing a problem that the last tech charged them to fix and didn't fix. You see, they didn't call the other tech. They called me. These customers are still my customers and I still fix their computer whenever they have a problem. What happened was the first tech didn't do his job. Because of that, they never called him back. Now they call me whenever they have problems because I actually fix their problems. When their neighbors have issues, they recommend me too. So when you're working on a customer's computer, go out of your way to do a good job. One of the things that I do that's kind of unnecessary is I will run the customer's antivirus even after I've done a virus removal. The reason I do this isn't to find a virus. If I did my job right, I've already fixed the problem. But let's say a week goes by and the customer runs their own antivirus and finds something. That makes you look bad. So I take a little bit of extra time to do a full scan with the customer's antivirus just to make sure that doesn't happen. Going above and beyond is only going to benefit you in the long run. Also, keep in mind, if you're following my tips, you're not the cheapest tech in town. You're making enough money to spend a little bit of extra time making sure that the job is done right. So these are just 5 tips that I can give you in starting a computer repair business. If you decide to take this path in life, all I can say is that you've unlocked the most amazing thing that you could ever do. You might not make the most money, and I pretty much guarantee you that you'll work all the time. You know, you can say goodbye to 8-hour days. However, being self-sufficient as a business owner is one of the most rewarding things that I've ever done in my life. I could never even imagine working for someone else. If someone came to me today and told me they would pay me double what I currently earn to come work for them, I wouldn't even have to think about it before I turned it down. I honestly wish I would have done this long before, but I was scared. It's hard to give up regular, consistent income for pretty much the Wild West. Being a business owner comes with some really rewarding benefits, but also some downsides. Some months, you might make more money than you know what to do with, but other months, you might be scraping from your savings account just to put gas in your car, especially with today's gas prices. But ultimately, the freedom that comes with being a business owner is simply impossible to quantify. I go on vacation whenever I damn well please, and I even have the opportunity to do stuff like starting a YouTube channel because, I don't know, sounds fun. If you desire to start your own business as a computer tech or any field you're good at, I highly recommend it. Being a small business owner is one of the most rewarding things that you'll ever do with your life. You really won't regret it. With all that said, if you want to run a computer business, or you already do, then check out this video where I show you how to install any driver in Windows. This program has saved me so much time working on customer systems. You guys have a great day.